Why do the same stories echo through civilizations separated by oceans and millennia? Why does a hero from an ancient Sumerian tablet feel so familiar to a child watching a modern blockbuster? What if these are not just coincidences, but echoes of an invisible story, a shared psychological blueprint inherited by every human being? The striking similarities found in the myths, art, and dreams of cultures across all time periods suggest a deeper, universal source from which we all draw.
This is the story of one of the most profound and controversial ideas in modern psychology, introduced by a man named Carl Jung. His work was a quest to map the hidden, universal layer of the human mind, a realm he called the collective unconscious. He proposed that beneath our personal biographical memories lies a vast and ancient psychic inheritance common to all humanity. This journey will explore that hidden world, revealing the invisible patterns, the archetypes that shape our lives from our deepest fears to our greatest aspirations. We will discover how these ancient blueprints influence our modern world, and how Jung's once mystical idea is now finding surprising validation in the language of modern science. To understand ourselves, we first need a map of the mind. For a long time, that map was thought to be entirely personal, drawn from the unique contours of a single life. This section explores a radical redrawing of that map, one that added a new, shared continent to our inner world. The first modern map was charted by Sigmund Freud. He introduced the concept of the personal unconscious, a private basement where an individual's forgotten memories, repressed desires, and unresolved conflicts are stored. It is, in essence, a personal diary that has been locked away, filled with the unique experiences and secrets of one person's life. Carl Jung, a colleague of Freud, found this map incomplete. In his work with patients, he observed dreams and fantasies filled with powerful symbols and motifs from ancient myths his patients had never encountered. It was as if they were remembering things they had never learned. This led Jung to a revolutionary conclusion. Beneath the personal unconscious lay a second, far deeper layer shared by all people. Jung called this layer the collective unconscious. He described it not as a private basement, but as a vast, ancient ocean flowing beneath every individual. It is a psychological inheritance shared by all of humanity, containing the memory traces of our collective ancestral past. Unlike the personal unconscious, which is acquired during one's lifetime, the collective unconscious is universal and inborn. This shared foundation is a kind of psychological DNA, an inborn software that provides the basic foundation of how to be human. It explains why a child in Zurich might dream of a figure from an ancient, unknown myth, because both the child and the ancient mythmaker are drawing from the same universal source. This shared ocean is not empty. It is filled with powerful, invisible currents that shape our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Jung called these currents archetypes. If the collective unconscious is the ocean, the archetypes are the powerful, invisible currents that guide our lives. They are the universal blueprints for experience, the psychic software that comes pre-installed in every human mind. This section defines what these blueprints for being truly are. Jung described an archetype as the psychic counterpart of instinct. Just as a bird is born with the instinct to build a nest, humans are born with psychic instincts to experience a mother, a hero, or a shadow. These are innate patterns or pre-existent forms that unconsciously shape how we perceive and respond to the world.
They don't dictate specific thoughts, but they provide the universal framework through which we understand life. A crucial misunderstanding is that an archetype is a specific image like the Virgin Mary or Luke Skywalker. Jung made a critical distinction between the invisible pattern and its visible expression. The archetype as such, this is the pure, formless potential that exists in the collective unconscious. It is unknowable and invisible, like a deep channel in a riverbed. The channel itself is empty, but it dictates the path the water will take. The archetypal image, this is the water itself, the visible, culturally specific expression of the formless archetype. The Virgin Mary and the goddess Isis are not the mother archetype itself. They are specific images that fill the universal channel of mother. This universal blueprint becomes a personal story through a process Jung called actualization. The formless archetype, residing in the shared collective unconscious, is activated by personal experience. This intersection creates an emotionally charged complex, a functional unit of the personal unconscious. The archetype is the universal frame. The complex is the personal picture that fills it. So, while every human inherits the universal frame for mother, our unique experiences with our own maternal figures create a personal, emotionally charged mother complex that wires that ancient story directly into our individual lives. While there are countless archetypes, 4 of them are so fundamental they act as the core pillars of our very personality. The journey to know ourselves begins with meeting 4 key figures who live within us. These aren't just characters in a story, they are the fundamental structures of our psyche. Consciously understanding and integrating them is the primary work of personal growth. The persona is the mask we wear to fit into society. Like an actor's mask or a social uniform, it is the role we present to the world to function effectively. It is a necessary tool for social adaptation. The primary danger of the persona is inflation, where we mistake the mask for our true face. When we over-identify with our job title, social role, or public image, we lose sight of our true selves. The shadow is our unknown dark side, containing all the weaknesses, desires, and instincts we repress and deny about ourselves. It is the literal shadow that follows us everywhere, holding our darkest fears and greatest hidden potentials. The greatest danger of the shadow is projection. When we deny our own darkness, we inevitably see it in other people, judging them for the very traits we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. The contrasexual otherness within the inner feminine in a man, Anima, and the inner masculine in a woman, Animus. This archetype acts as a bridge to the deeper unconscious and powerfully influences our relationships. Unconsciousness leads to possession. A man possessed by his anima, which represents the principle of eros, relatedness, is consumed by moods as it intensifies, exaggerates, falsifies, and mythologizes all emotional relations. A woman possessed by her animus, which represents logos, reason, is ruled by harsh, unfounded opinions, as it acts like a council of condemnatory judges issuing rigid pronouncements. The self is the archetype of wholeness, the true center and totality of the entire psyche. It is not the ego, but the greater personality that encompasses both conscious and unconscious. If the ego is the earth, the self is the sun, the organizing center around which all other planets, the persona, shadow, etc., orbit. Its purpose is to guide the lifelong process of self-realization.
Beyond these four pillars, the collective unconscious is populated by a vast and vibrant cast of characters that appear in every story we have ever told. The human story is told with a recurring cast of characters. These figures are not just literary tropes, they are archetypal energies that live within our shared imagination. This section introduces some of the most powerful and recognizable members of that cast. Driven to prove one's worth through courageous acts, the hero represents the ego's journey to overcome adversity and improve the world. This is the champion, the rescuer, and the most common protagonist in our stories, from ancient religious figures like Buddha to modern icons like Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter. This figure is motivated to protect and nurture. The Great Mother has a crucial dual nature. She is both the nurturing good mother, like the Virgin Mary, who provides comfort and life, and the devouring terrible mother, like the dragon, who threatens to suffocate and destroy. The sage is the seeker of truth and wisdom, driven by the belief that the truth will set you free. This figure offers guidance and knowledge, appearing in our myths as a guru, a mentor, or a wizard like Merlin. An essential and often disruptive figure, the trickster is the boundary breaker. Using humor, mischief, and absurdity, the trickster challenges authority, exposes our flaws, and prevents our world from becoming too rigid. The Norse god Loki is a classic mythological example.
But what is the point of this vast inner world? Why do we have these stories inside of us? The answer is a grand purpose, a lifelong quest called individuation. Jung's psychology is not just a description of the mind, it is a map with a destination. All of these archetypes, from the shadow to the hero, are pushing us toward one ultimate goal: becoming who we truly are. This lifelong journey is called individuation. Individuation is the process of self-realization, the natural journey to become whole. Its goal is not perfection, but a synthesis of opposites, the conscious integration of the hidden and contradictory parts of ourselves. It is the process of fulfilling one's unique potential. This journey follows a path that is remarkably similar to the classic hero's journey found in myths worldwide. The journey begins with the essential first step of confronting our own darkness. This requires considerable moral effort to accept the parts of ourselves we have disowned. By integrating the shadow, we stop projecting our flaws onto others. Engaging the Anima, Animus, the next stage, involves building a bridge to our inner world by learning to understand our own otherness. This dialogue with our inner masculine or feminine side balances our emotional and relational lives. Dethroning the ego. The final goal is to shift the center of our personality. The conscious ego must surrender its delusion that it is the master of the psyche and take its proper place in service to the greater self. This achieves a harmony between our conscious identity and our deeper unconscious potential. It is a beautiful and compelling story of human potential. But for decades, the world of science dismissed it as nothing more than a fantasy. Jung's ideas, drawn from the interpretive world of dreams and myths, clashed dramatically with the empirical world of mainstream science. His theory of archetypes was put on trial, with critics labeling it mystical and unscientific. First, it was too mystical. Jung's method was not based on controlled experiments, but on interpreting ancient myths and patient fantasies. Critics argued that this was too subjective, as if he were reading into the material his own expectations. Second, it was unfalsifiable. A core tenet of science is that a theory must be testable. It must be possible to prove it wrong. Critics charged that the theory of archetypes could explain anything and be disproven by nothing, making it more of a belief system than a scientific hypothesis. And third,
There was a simpler explanation. The principle of parsimony, or Occam's razor, states that the simplest explanation is usually the best. Critics argued that the same story everywhere phenomenon could be more simply explained by cultural transmission, people sharing stories across the globe, rather than a complex, inherited psychic structure. The single biggest scientific hurdle was the question of inheritance. How could complex symbolic patterns like the myth of the hero be passed down through our genes? This sounded like a discredited biological theory known as Lamarckism and formed the core of the scientific rejection. For nearly a century, the debate seemed to be a stalemate: biological inheritance versus cultural learning. But then, from unexpected corners of the scientific world, new evidence began to emerge. In recent decades, modern science has begun to unexpectedly demystify Jung's theory, revealing a potential biological reality behind the myth. The old conflict between biology and culture is dissolving, as new discoveries reveal they are not opposing forces, but an inextricably linked system. Evolutionary psychology reframes archetypes as evolved psychological mechanisms that helped our ancestors survive. The universal mother archetype, from this view, is not a mystical image, but a reflection of the evolved biological necessity of the infant-mother attachment bond, a genetically influenced pattern essential for survival. Similarly, the universal fear of snakes is likely an innate inherited survival instinct. This functions exactly as Jung described an activated archetype, an inborn potential that is triggered by a real-world stimulus. Cognitive science suggests archetypes are embodied metaphors that arise from the simple fact that we all share a universal human body. The archetypal image of a dark forest in fairy tales is not an inherited memory of a forest. It is an embodied metaphor for the universal human experience that danger is darkness. These patterns are universal because our bodies and their relationship to the physical world are universal. The most startling development has come from epigenetics. This field studies how our life experiences, like trauma or stress, can cause chemical switches on our genes that regulate how they are expressed. Crucially, these epigenetic switches can be inherited. This provides a plausible scientific mechanism for the transgenerational transmission of epigenetic memories or memory traces. While we may not inherit the full story of the hero, epigenetics suggests we could inherit predispositions or potentials that are then activated by our culture and personal experiences. This directly addresses the biggest scientific critique of Jung's work, showing that the long-standing debate of biology versus culture was a false dichotomy all along. Jung's archetypes are far more than just a cast of characters in ancient myths. They are the dynamic, organizing principles of our minds, the bridge between our personal lives and the vast, shared story of humanity. The journey of this idea, from a mystical insight drawn from dreams, to a theory rejected by mainstream science, to a concept now finding new life through modern discoveries, is a powerful story in itself. It reflects our own journey toward integrating the unknown parts of our world. Whether science ultimately proves every detail of Jung's model or not, its true power endures. It provides a profound map of psychological landscapes, giving us a language to understand the universal patterns at play in our own lives. By recognizing these invisible stories, we are empowered to move from being unconscious actors to becoming the conscious authors of the story unfolding within. The echoes in the cave are not just remnants of the past, they are the living, breathing architecture of our own minds.